Welcome, everybody. I am super excited. Why am I super excited? Because we are back after a long hiatus on a continuation of one of my favorite Q Media shows, and that is History on Q. Now remember, when we started this show back in 2020, our goal was to showcase some of amazing California state parks to educators across California and beyond, because we have more than just California teachers that watch, to showcase the beauty of California, the history of California, and the amazing interpreters that are at each and every park that will accept field trips and students and classes to actually see history come alive. And that's why History on Q is one of my absolute favorite shows. And I'm glad we are back on track. And we have a brand new co-host this time around, Daniel from State Parks. Daniel, welcome to the show, my friend. I am super excited that you are here with me because of your passion for what you do and just your enjoyment. Every time I talk with you, I can see joy on your face and in your voice. So can you please introduce yourself to the audience, and what is your role at California State Parks?
Well, absolutely. Well, thank you, Joe. My name is Daniel Williford. I'm a California State Park interpreter, and I'm the Adventure Pass programs coordinator. And that's what we're here to really talk about today is the Adventure Pass.
Yes.
It's a very exciting program for fourth graders. It's a free pass that waives day use fees for 19 selected parks that are participating in this program. Oh, great. And you can see the website address scrolling along the bottom right there. That is your key to the adventure right there. That gives you all the information about the Adventure Pass and to sign up for it as well. And did I mention that it was free? It's a free day use pass for fourth graders, which is super exciting.
That is super exciting. Free is a good price, right? But the thing about it is we want to make sure, like when we were talking about bringing this show back, we're like, how can we get this show back on track, right? How can we go full steam ahead in revamping this show? And when I was talking about this, when Q was visiting one of the parks we're going to be talking about today, it was like, why not take a journey through the Adventure Pass parks? Why not showcase the amazing parks that are part of the Adventure Pass to kind of get your goosebumps flowing on your skin, like I have to go there. And I do have to say that the park we are about to take an adventure on, the park that we will be full steam ahead, the park that we're going to keep this train a rolling on the Adventure Pass program,
barreling down the tracks. We're all on board.
I had not been to this place since I was in fifth grade, and I have to tell you, when I walked in to the Great Room, I'm going to call it the Great Room for right now, and I saw the majesty that is in this park, I was just so amazed. I mean, the little kid in me came out again, like, oh my goodness. And I didn't know I would get so excited. So I know we're teasing it a little bit. So let's get this party rolling. Let's go ahead and bring our interpreters on. Daniel, can you please introduce where we are and our interpreters for the day?
Absolutely. We are at the most amazing place. It's the California State Railroad Museum located in downtown Sacramento. Our guides today are Jake and Debbie, and I can't think of two other people who are more enthusiastic and more fun to share the Railroad Museum with us. So we're in for a treat this morning and getting to see the Railroad Museum with both Jake and Debbie.
Jake and Debbie, welcome to the show. And I do have to say, your team, when Q visited the Railroad Museum for our Learning Development Institute, LDI, a few weeks back, it was a joy to be able to meet both of you and to work with you. But I have to tell you, I was in awe of the museum. The outside, it's a very beautiful brick building, but it doesn't look as big as it actually is. It's almost like Doctor Who. It's like it's bigger on the inside, right? And then when I walked into the Great Room where all of the locomotives are, where all of the engines are, I didn't know I loved trains that much. I didn't. I looked at them and I was just in awe. So can you explain to us, about like maybe a little bit of the history of the Railroad Museum, how it came to be, and some amazing things that our teachers and students could anticipate if they were to come in as part of the Adventure Pass or as a ports field trip to your amazing institution?
Absolutely. So the Railroad Museum has been around for a little over 40 years now. We celebrated our 40th anniversary in 2021. It was built in 1981. So we've been around a long time. As you mentioned, we're in Old Sacramento State Historic Park. The place we're in right now is the Transcontinental Railroad Gallery, and if I can show it off a little bit. So this is sort of our sort of wow factor. This is where kids go the first moment they're in the museum. Usually after their orientation, they'll come directly in here. Oftentimes I'm doing the orientations for groups, so I get to see all the wows and oh my gosh and all these excited faces from the fourth graders as they walk into this spot. As an indoor park, most of our state parks are outdoors, and it's usually up halfway through the hiking trail, or maybe it's right off the bus, but wherever they are, the kids have that wow factor with being with nature. I'd say this room was our closest that we get, and I think that it's one of my favorite spaces in the museum.
Now, when I was in there, I saw a lot of different artifacts all across the the sides and everything, and then that locomotive right behind you. Is that an actual historical locomotive that was in use, back in the 1900s?
Well, yeah, this whole gallery is meant to simulate the building of the Transcontinental Gallery, or the Transcontinental Railroad. And in a minute, we'll give you a little bit of a view to show where the civil engineers were, the surveyors were. We have artifacts, and specifically this locomotive right behind us, the Governor Stanford number 1, was named after Governor Leland Stanford. He was governor of California in 1861-62. He was also the president of the Central Pacific Railroad. So it's only appropriate that they would name their first locomotive after Governor Stanford. It is a real, I always like to tell the students, this is the real deal. This isn't Disneyland. It's not just made up. This locomotive helped build the Transcontinental Railroad.
Wow.
And
is it coming out of the tunnel? Yeah.
Yeah, this tunnel simulates the hard work of cutting through rock to create that Transcontinental Railroad. A lot of our students today, they don't quite understand the gravity of this connecting the East Coast and the West Coast through locomotives. Can you talk a little bit about that history? Like why was it such an initiative to create this railroad, and how it changed basically the structure of the United States in doing so?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to think about is we've probably all played the Oregon Trail game at some point in our lives, and this is what replaces that. So one of the big things of that Oregon Trail game, by the end of your journey, you've lost at least somebody to dysentery, and you run out of wheels and replacements and all these other things, and obviously it's a little hyperbolic for the game, but it really was a very dangerous journey that people took. People could either take that horse and wagon walking all the way across the country, or they could take a long boat ride all the way around South America, like actually the locomotive did. But the Transcontinental Railroad would change all of that. It would now only take 7 days and 7 nights to get from New York to Sacramento, and obviously a significantly safer journey as well. So that's really the sort of biggest reason, is just faster transportation from the East Coast to the West Coast. There was a big population center now in California after the gold rush, so people wanted to make sure that they could get out there. And one thing I like to stress is that this was such an important thing, even during the Civil War. That's when we get our funding. So the rest of the Union is focused on the Civil War, but they still understand that this is such an important thing. We're going to divert some resources and some money to building the railroad.
And back then, like today, if you hear train, well, you think of Amtrak, right? You don't think of anything other than Amtrak. But when we think of like airports, there's Delta, United, there's many different companies. Was there many different companies that ran the railroad, or was there just a couple or just one?
Well, if you're talking about the Transcontinental Railroad, there were two specific railroads that was built into the 1862 Pacific Railway Act signed by President Lincoln. That's the Central Pacific Railroad. They started here in Sacramento and built east. And there's the Union Pacific Railroad that started in Omaha, Nebraska and built west. They met in 1869 at Promontory Summit. But back east, there was a whole network of railroads, all kinds of railroads. In our school program, we have a map that shows all these red lines in the eastern seaboard to show how many railroads there were. But if you're talking specifically about this one route that would take you across the country, it was the Union Pacific Railroad and the Central Pacific Railroad.
Okay.
And when we're talking about, I mean, I love history. I absolutely love it, and I love how it's almost like one moment connects to another moment, which ultimately connects to our modern day. Can you tell a little bit about, once this railroad was completed, was that kind of like a moment of explosion of travel from the east to the west? Is that where a lot of the communities in California today started to get larger, because it was much easier to travel by train than by wagon or by steamship or ship all the way across? I mean, did this create basically California because it made it easier to get there?
Yeah, in many ways it did. Many communities can trace their origins, or at least their population growth, to the connection of the railroad. So once we have that Transcontinental Railroad route that connects the east and the west, other branch lines will branch out along that route, developing cities and towns. And one of my favorite things to do when I travel, especially to sort of smaller towns, smaller cities, like Tiburon's one of them that's not too far from here, is you'll go to a railroad museum in all these locations, because so many of these towns have some type of railroad museum, usually kind of a smaller one-room kind of thing, but they're cool to go to. And so many of them talk about their community's unique perspective on the railroad, or their unique connection to the railroad. And it's all just like, oh yeah, once we got that connection to the railroad, our population got bigger. Our city was built around the railroad. Usually the railroad is around where the center of town at least used to be located. So most of these cities can have some type of relationship to the railroad.
And
Yeah, because not only,
I just want to add that it was not only in California, but it was all along the Transcontinental Route. Any city that was located on the railroad grew and prospered. And if you weren't along that route, well, you probably didn't do too well. One of our school programs, Westward Bound, actually deals with the aspect of travel and why people traveled on the train, why they moved west, and what types of people, what types of experiences they had. And that's located in the old Central Pacific Railroad station that we have located here in Old Sacramento State Historic Park. So there's a lot to see that's not just in the museum, but outside in the park as well.
Awesome. And the trains not only brought people, but they brought supplies that the towns could build out with as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the trains were such a lifeline in so many ways in building California.
Yeah, I think every old Western has that, that train station. Like there's no town without its train station, because that's the lifeblood of coming into those towns. So I love that story. I love that history. Now, the museum itself, you said it's been around for 40 years now. When I visited, I believe, it's when I was in 5th grade, so it had to be like 90, 91. I bought a souvenir, and it was this spike it looked like it was painted gold, and it had this little history of it. They called it the golden spike. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of this golden spike? And is that considered an antique now if I owned it from 1990?
Probably, right?
Well, the gold spike is really it's really an exciting artifact. It signifies the joining of the two railroads. It's joined with that gold spike. There were actually 4 spikes at that ceremony in Promontory on May the 10th, 1869. But that gold spike was the last spike that went in. It was actually a gift from a friend of Leland Stanford, who I mentioned a moment ago, and he donated that spike to the ceremony. Then quickly, some other people donated spikes. There's a gold spike from San Francisco. There's a silver spike from Nevada to signify the silver strike that was going on at that time. And there's a silver and gold plated spike that was used at the ceremony that was donated by the territory of Arizona. But we have a spike here in the museum that is exactly like the gold spike that was used in Promontory. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, where is Promontory Point? Yeah.
There are the two spikes, nearly exact copies. The one difference is there was a slight delay in the date of the joining the Transcontinental Railroad, the Golden Spike ceremony. The one we have says the original date, which is May 8th, 1869. The other one says May 10th, which is the actual day that it was joined. But they're essentially exact twins. His friend asked which one he wanted. He grabbed the other one, kept the other one for himself. The one that was at the ceremony, from my understanding, is at the Stanford University, and we have its exact twin here.
And that ceremony was that Utah? Is that where it was joined?
Yeah, Promontory, Utah.
Excellent. Now,
Is that about halfway between Sacramento and, is it Omaha, or more or less? Yeah.
More or less. It's slightly closer to our end. Central Pacific had less total miles because we had to go through the Sierra Nevada mountain range, so that slowed them down quite a bit.
Yeah, and one of the things to talk about is why that happened. We have a big display and exhibit about the workers that made the most significant contribution to building the railroad on the Central Pacific end, and that's the Chinese railroad workers. The workforce was made up of 90% Chinese railroad workers, and they had to go up and over the Sierra in brutal conditions. So brutal weather, dealing with the winter of 1866, 1867 had 40 snowstorms. Think about that. They were up there in the summit of the Sierra dealing with 40 snowstorms, blizzards, avalanches, and they were using hand tools only to get through the solid granite to build a tunnel big enough for a train to go through. Wow. It's incredible. They actually had to build snow tunnels to get around in because there was so much snow up there. But for that one tunnel, they did 15 tunnels up in the Sierra. But the one that we talk about a lot, because it was the longest and the most difficult, is the Summit Tunnel. And it's 1,659 feet long. That's like almost 5 football fields. And they did it all by hand with hand tools.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, yeah, no bulldozers, no machines, no drills, just pickaxes and just human will. That's absolutely amazing. I mean, right now, whenever I drive up and down the 99 here in California, I see them building the high-speed rail, and they have all the machines that you can imagine building that thing. And this railroad, this track was built by blood, sweat, and tears. I think that's absolutely amazing. Now, the locomotive you have behind you, you've told us the history and the name. Do you have some other famous engines in the museum as well? Engines that have historical significance that maybe hold a special place in your heart with its story in the museum?
So my favorite piece of railroad equipment that we currently have is the Commissioner car, which we have on loan from the Nevada State Railroad Museum. It's not an engine, but it's a railroad car, a passenger car. That was originally at the Golden Spike ceremony, so the same time period essentially as this Governor Stanford locomotive behind me. And it was made for Leland Stanford and I believe it was Charles Crocker to go up there to the Golden Spike ceremony. And engage in all those festivities and celebrate the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. After that, it has a long history both in movies and TVs. It was also used in Nevada to bring suffragettes to the signing of I believe it's the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. And it was deemed the Suffragette Express. So we have all these amazing stories to tell about the Commissioner car. And since it's one of our newest ones, I like to talk about it.
And is that like the first class car? Is it like inside it's like plush and cushy and like is that what it kind of is? Fancy?
So
150 years ago.
150 years ago, state of the art, looked awesome.
All right.
So
it's all relative.
As it was adopted to other uses, it was changed from a private commissioner car setting where it would only hold a couple of people to a more traditional passenger car. So it took out some of the extra fancy stuff and put in the regular seats and things like that. And then as it was used in movies, it slowly deteriorated and eventually it is now in arrested distress, or there's some official term for it, but it shows its age pretty much.
So it's well grown.
I was going to say that was my favorite as well. So now I have to choose one. And it's so hard to choose favorites because if we're talking about the commissioner's car that Jake was just talking about, and your question about was it lush and luxurious, we have a car in the museum, a private car called the Gold Coast, which was owned by two men, Beebe and Clegg, and they traveled all over the country in a very luxurious car. And, you know, it has also a very special history to us here at the Railroad Museum in that Ronald Reagan, who was president of the United States, but before he was president, he was governor of California. And he was instrumental in getting the funding and supporting the building of our museum. So there was a dinner that was held inside that Gold Coast car with Ronald Reagan and the people who were trying to, as I said, get the funding for the railroad. So it has a lot of history to it. We also have a car that has a dining car. It's called the Cochiti dining car, and it shows what it was like as a first class experience to eat on the train. And what's really cool about that is you see all these different samples of railroad china from all different railroads. So I love going in there, and one day I'll choose my favorite, and the next day I'll say, no, you know, I really like this one better. Has sample menus, which are really fun to see how much food costs back in the 30s and 40s. And we also have another car that's called we call it the sleeper car, but it is the St. High sleeper car. And this is, you might have seen in movies where they pull the curtain over the cars, the seats. And so this has the beds and shows what it was like to travel at night. And there are a few surprises in that car too, which the students absolutely love.
Oh my goodness. I have to go back and do some more tour. I mean, like I was able to do an hour-long tour. I want hours-long tour when I go back. It's amazing. Speaking of tours, you both have probably been in or have seen many over the years at the Railroad Museum. Is there any one particular moment when during any of those tours that stands out to you, like maybe a comment by a student or just a like wow reaction? I mean, when they walked out, is there any moment that you go like, I have to tell this story? Because I love that. I love when students are just blown away by something, or, you know, kids say the darndest things, you know, the questions they ask that can be very funny.
Let me jump in here because I just want to say Jake here is a celebrity to our students. We have a digital program, and when Jake greets the school groups and gives them the orientation, they all point and they say, hey, we know you, and they're so excited. He probably wouldn't say that, maybe he's a little bashful, but I'm going to say they treat him like a celebrity. They love seeing the person that they've seen on the video. So I'll let you tell about some of the other things that they've.
Yeah, well, that's such a fun thing because when they come in, they already know a little bit about the exhibits. They're really excited because they just saw them virtually, so now they get to explore the thing in person. So that's really awesome. I'd say maybe the funniest comment I've ever got. So our digital programs are a mixture of live interpretation where we do poll questions and things like that. And then we also play pre-recorded videos that we did over the pandemic. So this would have been like late 2020, early 2021. And I'm usually the conductor. I'm talking to the kids live. And then I'm also one of the presentations, the pre-recorded ones. And as we get further away from 2020 and 2021, the more like you start seeing that it's a little bit older. So we've had students in the Q&A section ask if if that's me when I was young and all these other things. And I'm like, I'm only 25. I'm still young. What are you guys talking about?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, but I would encourage anybody, if you guys are, if teachers are planning an adventure pass self-guided field trip to our museum, if you can pair it with a digital field trip, those are free of cost as well. They're designed for fourth grade curriculum. So the easiest way to get to that is our website with all the information there.
Excellent. And we'll be sure to include the website in any of the show notes and wherever this video is being viewed, so they can go directly to that. And I love the idea of that preloading, right? The go on the virtual field trip, get some pre-information, and then take a trip to the Railroad Museum and see it in person and get that firsthand experience. And I think that's what a lot of our students have lost, is that tactile field trip to actual places of history with actual experts on that history. And I think what you both do really allows history to come to life, really connects how innovation and perseverance creates society and has created California and has helped us become who we are. And I think being able to connect the dots like that really opens the eyes of our young students. And I do want to remind everybody that the Railroad Museum, California State Parks Railroad Museum in Sacramento, is free to go to through the Adventure Pass, right? The Adventure Pass for fourth graders, 100% free. So definitely, if you're in that area or driving through that area and your student is in fourth grade, make sure you sign up for the Adventure Pass so that you can have access to not only this park, but the many others that are out there. Jake, Debbie, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you both. You're immensely knowledgeable. And I do have to say, you work in one of the most gorgeous places that I've visited in a very long time. So again, thank you so much for your passion. Thank you so much for coming on our first episode of season 3 to promote the Adventure Pass, but also just to promote history and connecting that with our students today. So thank you so much. And I hope to visit you very, very soon.
Thank you, Jake and Debbie. All right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Daniel, they're amazing. They are.
Amazing.
When Q visited the Railroad Museum a few weeks ago for one of our events, Debbie was just phenomenal. And the staff at the Railroad Museum, so welcoming. And I can't praise that museum enough. I can't tell you how amazed I was when I walked around the corner and there was this giant room filled with history. I never knew I loved trains that much, but I got giddy. I couldn't. It was amazing. Yeah. I actually opened up my phone and live streamed to my daughters. Look where I am. Look at this. We got to come. It was pretty awesome. But this is just
my great memories of the Railroad Museum. It was kind of like yours. I hadn't been there in a long time. I went there and didn't know. I was so into trains. It took me by surprise. But what I really loved watching were kids who were there with their families, kids who were there with their on a field trip. Fourth grade age tended to be like the main age there. And the wow and the awe of the kids who probably didn't know that they liked trains too, or maybe they did. Trains are a thing, but the California State Railroad Museum is just one of the most special places because it holds those important stories of our state within its walls. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things is, the way we travel now is completely different. Students either get into a car or a van, or if they are going on an airplane, they never actually really get to see the outside of the airplane. They have to go through that the air walkway, and then they're in. They don't get to see the majesty of how large and how big it is. And you get to see that with these locomotives. You get to see how amazing they are, and just the technology that goes into building them. Even though it's over 100 years old, it's still mind-boggling to me that it was able to be created that way.
Absolutely.
And this is just one museum in the pantheon of the Adventure Pass, right? Can you tell us just real quickly some of the other parks that if they go to this parks.california.gov/Adventure Pass, other parks that are part of the Adventure Pass?
Oh, yes, gladly so. It really kind of represents the best of California state parks, from the old growth redwoods up in Jedediah Smith State Park, all the way down to Silver Strand State Beach in San Diego. There's state beaches, rec areas with lakes. There's historic places like this California Citrus Museum and Park right here in Riverside, California. We also have, historic sites in the Central Valley. Got so many wonderful places, off-road parks as well. So kind of the best of California, kind of a sample of what California State Parks has to offer. And it's so exciting to be able to see all these parks and watch this program grow. We're in our second year of a 3-year pilot program with hopes that it'll just be, carried on forever. But these 3 years are kind of assessing how this program would work. And the 19 parks that we have chosen have really represent kind of the best of California, and also really play into the history of California as well, for fourth grade teachers to have maybe a digital program or have a field trip, and also encourage their students to sign up for the pass to go not only with school, but with their families as well. That's a big part of it, is get your families out there too, because it's not only free for the fourth grader, it's free for everybody who's in the car with that fourth grader. So that's an important thing to know. So yeah,
the fourth grader holds all the power, right? Find yourself a fourth grader and go to a park.
Totally.
The season 3 of History on Cue is taking you on that adventure, everybody. We will be visiting more parks that belong to the Adventure Pass as we go. So please look forward to more episodes. We will be airing these twice a month, every other Tuesday, twice a month, to bring you another adventure. And educators, if you are watching this and you want some more adventures, we are going to be holding Fall Q on October 20th and 21st in Stockton, California. So if you go over to fallq.org and you're looking for an amazing place to meet new educators, definitely attend. Parks is going to be there. Daniel, you said you're going to try to make it. I know the Porch crew is going to be there.
Yeah.
So come there, meet the parks, see the adventure, and just meet some fantastic people. But until our next adventure, Daniel, we just want you to all understand that we love you, educators. We love to bring these shows to you, and we hope that in the continued days, weeks, and months, we can bring you more fantastic virtual trips to amazing California state parks. So until then, have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.